Duncan founder and CEO of Brillband, a next-generation broadband company redefining connectivity through transparency, innovation, and customer-first infrastructure. With a background in venture development and early-stage growth, his mission is to make high-quality internet access a true utility delivered without complexity or compromise.
Good to meet you again, Duncan. After about 3.5 years, I would like to know a little bit about your childhood.
Cool. Yeah. I had a pretty sound childhood. Didn't come out without its challenges. So, my parents divorced when I was 6, and then my mum had cancer when I was 11, and then again when I was 16. And I think, so had that sort of trauma side to things. But yeah, other than that, had a pretty solid childhood, great parents, great education, which sort of stood me for where I am today. Really, I've learned a lot of lessons on the drive. When I was younger, I went through quite a hard period of bullying as well. So that was in my primary school, so sort of really 8 to 13. And then I was fortunate enough to go to private school. So then when I was 13, I went to a school called Leighton Park in Reading, which is a Quaker school, which was amazing. And that school really helped bring me out of my shell and gave me another opportunity, not another opportunity, but an opportunity to show people who I really was. Because I think from 8 to 13, I was sort of kept in my shell a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why was that?
I think kids can be cool. I went to a school called Bishopsgate School. It was a school in southeast of England, and it was, there were some very, very wealthy children, not wealthy children, but children from wealthy families, right? And my family, so although I was going to that school, I grew up in a place called Stanwell Moor, which is at the end of Heathrow, or what at the time was at the end of the Heathrow runway. You could see the afterburners of Concorde. It was that low.
Wow.
And then my dad lived in a place called Englefield Green, in a terraced house, like a 3-bed terraced house, whereas those kids were at school and going home to 7-8 bedroom mansions in Wentworth. Just a different world. And that then I think created an us versus him mentality, maybe. But it, stood me up and taught me how not to be with people, I would say. It taught me how to never treat people in that manner, and to accept people from all walks of life. I had my family's very split. So my grandfather on my dad's side, very successful lawyer, sold his law firm, was a donor to Oxford College, helped put people in underprivileged positions through the university. And then if I look at sort of my stepfather's family, so my stepfather started his own business. He's awesome, Gary. Classic Movements was the company. But his mum and dad bought their council flat and still live in West Drayton. And so I saw both sides. I saw genuinely some ultra wealthy, crazy homes. I've never seen homes like that. It's insane. You've got indoor pools, outdoor pools, cinemas, and you're like, what is this? I've got a 3-bedroom terrace. What is going on? Through to then, seeing the council estate and going to the council estate and not having, and seeing the love, to be honest with you, amongst that group of people, and it was always a big eye opener for me. I would say as a child, that was the one thing I sort of took away from that was the love within the working class community was just really profound.
Really?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that was really interesting.
How?
I think it was interesting for me to see because it was really supportive, and it was sort of it didn't matter. It didn't matter, money wasn't a thing. It was more about what you could do for one another. And it was always amazed me how, so it's Jean and Pete, who are my stepfather's parents, and my step grandparents, I guess. It was always amazing about how they just sort of, I walked in, it was like I was their grandchild straight away. It was just, you are part of the family, sit down, have a roast, all sat down, tiny table, comparatively to my dad's grandparents. There's a massive table and you're sat at one end and they're at the other, and still love, right? Still a huge amount of love there. But it just, I think that was the profound thing that I noticed within the working class community comparatively to what I was experiencing and seeing as a child in the middle class. And, you know, I don't know what you call the class of people that I went to school with, some of them, but, you know, the aristocracy or whatever. Yeah, so I think that's my childhood, really mixed, or working class or
Middle class and probably the ultra wealthy.
yeah, exactly, man. Like, definitely saw that, and there's pros and cons to every single class that you see there. And as a child, being exposed to those was really, I think, really important because it wasn't sheltered.
So you grew up in middle class,
Yeah,
and a little bit of the working class, while peering at the upper class or the ultra wealthy during your childhood.
yeah.
How do you think that prepared you for the kind of things you do today in terms of, you know, self-belief, in terms of confidence, in terms of, you know, going at something that seemingly looks juggernaut, something that seemingly look big?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that it taught me that nothing's impossible, and you can, if someone else can achieve that, I can. There's no reason why I can't. And it's just about working hard and also identifying the opportunity. I think that's the key thing.
The first time we met, one of the things that came to my mind was the story of Richard Branson going after seemingly established businesses that you don't, if you are just starting out, you have no business going after all of these set of people. You know, we did record label, did
Yeah.
things that if you don't have money, you are not supposed to do it. But one of the things that I found that stands out for exceptional entrepreneur is not necessarily that it starts from very large amount of money, or it is from what I see as a belief that's in themselves that I can do this, you know. And you mentioned that. How do you cultivate this kind of mindset?
I think it comes. I think it just takes time. I think you've got to, I think it forms part of like how you're raised, and also I think there's a level of, there comes a point in life and for people where you have to say enough's enough. Like, I don't want to just be, like, I want to create something. And you then got to be able to take the step forward to go and do that. Because I think a lot of people say, oh, I could do that, or I want to do that. But to take the step is the bit that you need to build the risk appetite up for. And I think it just takes certain experiences within your life to create someone like that. Like, I don't think it takes a decision or a moment for you to go and say, right, no, this is what I want to go and do. And
can you recollect that's kind of moment for yourself?
I think it's like a couple of moments. I think for me, yeah, I'd say the bullying's a big one. So I think that taught me, well, if I'm being bullied for not having, at the time, what felt like, well, I don't know the reasons, they're kids, right? But what it felt like to me as a child was I was being bullied because I didn't have the same amount of money as them. And therefore, because I didn't have a crazy cool house and get dropped off at school in a Porsche or Ferrari, I got dropped off in a Peugeot, like, when my mum worked at the school. But those sorts of things, I think, define you, and they sort of build a resentment. So there's a little bit of resentment there, right? Like, I resent you. You think I can't be you. Well, I'm gonna be you. And then I think there was the teachings that I had at my secondary school and into college, sixth form college. So that's honesty, integrity, equality. They sit within the Quakers. So it's a Quaker school. So it sits within the some of the pillars of Quakerism, right? And I'm not, although it's seen or to be a branch of Christianity, I think, but it wasn't a religious school in that sense. It was more, how do we take these pillars of this belief system and teach young adults and young people how to display those within themselves, their education, and then hopefully into wider society. So that was really interesting because it taught me how to treat people. I think that was really important. And then I went into the police. So I did 2.5 years as a special constable, whilst also working at doing gym membership sales at Virgin Active. So I started, actually my first gym membership sales job was for Gym Box in Shepherd's Bush, and I got fired after a month. That went well. The founder and CEO came in, and I'd missed a tear in a seat in a walk around I'd done. And he was such a stickler for detail that because I'd missed that tear in that seat, I was asked to, my probation was failed. So that was great.
Because you did what?
I missed a tear in a seat. There was a seat like a bench press, and the whole point at the time, the founder's vision was this gym should be perfect when you come in as a member. And, that's his vision, that's his prerogative. I was only 18, but you got to make mistakes and you got to learn from them. And I think that's the key thing. And actually, maybe to what you said earlier, is being unafraid to make those mistakes is also really important. And being humble enough that's hard, learning actually to be humble enough to admit the mistakes that you've made in front of important people and also people that look up to you. And I think that then gets you to that point where you feel confident enough to start a business, and not just a lifestyle business, but start a business that requires significant financial backing.
Well, talking about businesses that require significant backing, I would like us to talk about raising purpose.
Okay.
Yeah. How did you decide that was the next business you wanted to do?
Yes.
I want you to walk me through your thought process.
Okay, cool. It's just opportunity, right? So I think in life, opportunities present themselves, and it's up to us to go and take them. In Helena, my girlfriend at the time, now wife and mother to my beautiful children, who had just done an incredibly successful crowdfund on Crowdcube for a business called I Love Gorgeous. And we, as a consequence of that crowdfund, she had lots of people reach out to her saying, really need help raising money, really want to do a crowdfund. Like, how do I do this? What do I need to do? And I was at the time working at a business called Captain AI. It's a business now in Canada. Ryan, brilliant founder, one of the most driven individuals I think I've ever seen, and someone who has faced a huge amount of no and adversity trying to get his product in the market and being a mass adopted. An early adopter of AI and AI routing and algorithm business for deliveries. One of the biggest problems of delivery business is idle driver time. So I was there as their, at the time, head of business development. And it was there that I saw him doing a lot of working with investors, reporting to investors, and I helped write a deck. And it was in doing that and then seeing what Helena was doing that me and Helena looked at each other and realized there was an opportunity. So we came up with the name Raising Partners, and then we went to Old Street to the WeWork that was there, and we got this A-frame printed with our original logo, which was just literally an R in a circle with Raising Partners underneath it. And then we just pitched up. I messaged someone that I'd worked with in gyms, and they were sort of like the community manager there. And yeah, they just said, well, come rock up, put your A-frame board up, and people just started talking to us and talking about, what they wanted to do and how they wanted to raise. One of the first investment rounds we did, I think, was Loch Lomond Brewery with Fiona and Ewan. They're still going. Brilliant beers. And they've just opened a distillery, I believe. Wow. So yeah, it was awesome. And then it sort of then spiraled from that into, growing that business. I very much focused on the business development front, and then Helena was very much the individual speaking to angel investors and conducting the crowdfunds. So I built the brand and ensured deal flow. And then Helena was focused on conducting the investment rounds. That business, unfortunately, came a point 2 years ago where it's two things that tied really, particularly around sort of Brillband journey, but the market changed very significantly. Liz Truss didn't outlast a cabbage, but managed to absolutely decimate our economy. Thanks, Liz. And as a result of that, investment landscape became really turbulent, particularly for early stage businesses. And the interest rates that came with that meant that trying to run Raising Partners, I wasn't part of the business at this point. I left Raising Partners in 2020, but as they were trying to run Raising Partners, it just didn't become viable anymore.
You left in 2020?
I left Raising Partners in 2020, yeah.
Just the right time before COVID.
Well, you say that. I left Raising Partners because of a mental health breakdown. due to stress-induced burnout. So it was at the right time. And actually, that's how Brillband was born. So in 2020, February 2020, Helen was like, look, you're not well. You need to step away from the business. And so I was like, okay, fine. It took 6 months to get to that point, but you can imagine that was incredibly turbulent 6 months, and she's amazing for standing by me and supporting me through that. But at that point, I accepted that, there's something wrong, and went to the doctors, got prescribed citalopram, and then began my journey of recovery. So that was counseling, but COVID hit. So we are in lockdown now. It's March 2020. And I was having this like therapy, but it wasn't in person. It was on mobile. And originally it was meant to be like video, but the Wi-Fi, my property at the time, was terrible because the broadband connection was terrible, and it kept cutting in and out, and trying to get through to BT at the time to speak to them about it was a nightmare. And when you've got anxiety and you're on the phone and on hold to someone, and you don't really want to speak to anyone at that point, you start building up the conversation in your head, and you really want to avoid conflict. And so you get to the point where the person answers the phone and your anxiety levels are at sky high, and you then struggle to even articulate what the problem is. So it was then that I was like, why is it that I can speak to my bank despite it being COVID, right? So yes, their call centers are under a huge amount of pressure, but so are Starling's. Why is it that I can speak to Starling in my app? It might be a bit of a longer response, but I can do it, and it's quick and it's easy. Why can't I do that with my broadband provider? And that then sort of was one of the reasons. And then the other reason was that our bill was like £64 for 64 megabytes.
Really?
I was like, yeah. I was like, we've been with you for 6 years. Why is our bill so high? Like, other people are paying, like new customers are paying £32. So why are we paying 64? Anyway, I went through the retentions process and all that stuff. And then we ended up speaking to that person, and they were like, we can give you £3 discount. So I was like, that's it. That's when Project Fair Limited in May of 2020 came about, because I didn't have a brand name at the time. So you'll see on Companies House, if anyone goes and looks at the history of the brand, they will see the first name on Companies House is Project Fair Limited, because the whole point was about how can I make broadband fair and transparent for consumers across the UK.